Hi, today we'll be discussing this paper on vision transformers. So here are the contents that we'll be going through in this presentation. So what is the problem? So problem is to come up with better alternative solution to the traditional convolutional neural network based architecture for image recognition problem. Can we design architecture that does not use any sort of convolution? Can we use transformers which are very scalable and very cost effective to train as compared to convolution in this vision field? So the challenge with transformers is transformers are designed to handle sequential data. So how do we sequentialize images? How do we use self attention on such large number of pixels in an image? So this paper handles these sort of challenges and problems. So here's the solution. So here's a vision transformer that the authors have proposed. So how does a vision transformer works? Let's discuss that. So the vision transformer splits the images into fixed size patches. Each of these patches is linearly transformed into a flattened vector, and then position information and class token are added to this vector to form an embedded vector. This embedded vector is then passed through a transformer encoder, which learns the relationship between the various patches and produces an output. This output is then passed through a multi-layer perceptron to perform the final classification. Let's see. So how the splitting is done. So the image is just split into 14 by 14 or 16 by 16 pixel size patches. This is done because if we do individual pixel, we will end up with a very high number of parameters. It is a basic example of how the image splitting is done. Next, when we have this image, these patches, we just flatten them out and convert all those vectors into a d-size vector that will be used throughout the transformers layers. We also add position embedding, which is the positional data of each patch, and a class token that will be used to predict the class in the final in the final output. Over here, we can see the positional embedding or similarity between various patches. So you can see as expected, the rows will have more relation to the next patches, hence a higher similarity between rows and column based patches. We can and both these patch and position embedding are learnable parameters that transformer has to learn. The model has to learn. So once we have this embedded vector, we pass them through the transformer encoder blocks, which are multi-layered, which have multi-head self-attention and MLP layers that learn the relationship between these patches and produce an output. This output is then passed through a multi-layer perceptron, and final classification happens. During the self-training, this can be a different MLP, and during fine-tuning, we can replace this to and fine tune a different head for a specific task classification task. So here is an basic animation of vision based transformers. So first splitting, then flattening and linear projection, adding position and class embedding vectors, then passing through transformers, producing a MLP output to MLP head, and final classification. So what is the experimental approach? So first the data sets. So three data sets are used. ImageNet, the superset of ImageNet, which is ImageNet 21, and the biggest set that is GFT 300 with 303 million high resolution images. Three models are compared in this paper: the VIT model, or Vision Transformer model, the VIT model, which is basically a large ResNet model, and a noisy student model, which is just an efficient net trained on GFT 300M dataset. So here are the parameters that they have used for fine tuning. The metrics are just the accuracy on some fine tuned data set for classification problem. So what are the results? So the VIT architecture, as you can see in this table, has outperformed every single CNN based architecture when trained of GFT 300M dataset. But it's not the same case when we have used the other datasets. Let's see in the upcoming slides. We can also see the VTAP performance of the vision transformers supersede every other CNN based model. Over here, we can see then when trained with ImageNet or Image 21K-net, we can see the traditional CNN based architecture outperform the vision transformers. Let's learn why. So here are the trade-offs. So vision based transformer do not have a high inductive bias, they have a low inductive bias. CNNs have a high inductive bias, that's why they have higher performance on a smaller data set. But as the data set increases, the vision based transformers outperform the CNN based models. So this is one of the trade-offs. The another trade-off is the patch size. So we can use 14 by 14 or 16 by 16. If we use a smaller patch size, it increases the performance, but also increases the number of length which we have to enroll. And finally, the model. The deeper the model, it certainly gets a better performance, but stagnates after that. So this is some of the trade-offs and caveats that we have to face in vision transformers. So novelty and comparison. So VIT does not use any sort of convolutional operation, which is very novel in this field. It does not use any hybrid model combining transformers with any CNN layers. That's also, it just uses vanilla transformers for all the classification. The earliest self-attention method that was used in vision classification problem was to apply the self-attention in local patches instead of global patches. So it's very different from that. And the closest thing that closest model that comes to this vision-based transformer model is that of this paper, which applies a 2x2 patches to attain which splits the image in 2x2 patches and applies global attention or global self attention on top of that. So, what are the conclusions? So, it's a novel approach. It does not use any traditional convolutional neural network based architecture. It processes image as a sequence, as opposed to the CNNs, which process the whole image at a time. The performance, talking about performance, it outperforms every single convolutional neural net based architecture if trained on a certainly very large data set. Otherwise, it fails. Yeah. And scaling and data. So yeah, as we know, convolutional, after some time, convolutions and neural network can get very costly to train as the depth increases, but transformers are very scalable. Hence, they are very successful. They can be very successful in this vision field. For the future works, the authors have proposed using such transformers based models for detection and segmentation problems. Here are some of the references that I have used. uh, Thank you so much.